It's just so cold. Up there getting warm. Good morning, Reptilians. Welcome and welcome back to the channel. I'm Elle, and this is Elle's Reptiles. This week, we are going to talk about winter weather tips for your reptiles, because I don't know about where you live, but here it got so cold so fast. I think it was 20-something degrees this morning. So first of all, happy December, happy winter time. Before we get started, this video is sponsored by Geckos, so make sure to stay until the end of the video to find out all about this awesome company. Let's get started. Okay, so the first tip, and it's a big one, is that during the winter time, most likely your reptiles are going to slow down. This is especially true if your reptiles are adults. I like this. Well, I guess it's fine. This is especially true if your reptiles are adults. Babies sometimes don't follow these sorts of trends, but your reptiles are probably going to slow down. That means that they are going to be out less, they may bask less, they probably most definitely are going to eat less, and these are all super normal things. If you think about if that reptile was out in the wild, when it's cold, they don't have a heat source to help them digest their food, so they eat less. Can definitely be very stressful the first winter you go through with your reptile, but very normal. And in that same category, some reptiles will actually do something called brumation, where you may not see them for months at a time, especially things like bearded dragons. When it cools down, they may do this sort of hibernation thing. Again, babies generally are not going to do this. This is only for adults. They may just not eat for 2 to 3 months. They may hide and sleep for 2 to 3 months. This is super normal. Make sure that if your animal is starting to slow down and they seem like they may be sick, so they are super stressed out looking, there's anything wrong with the way that they're using the bathroom, make sure you do take some sort of stool sample to a reptile veterinarian before they go into brumation, because going into brumation while being sick can be harmful and even deadly to animals, so that is something that you want to keep an eye on. But slowing down and brumation are all super normal. The next tip is to make sure you have extra heat sources hooked up or at least on hand. So for where I live in Alabama, it's warm most of the time, but during the winter it does get very cold. So I like to make sure that I have extra heat bulbs, extra deep heat projectors, extra heat pads, all those things on hand, because if something like that were to break and it gets super cold and I have to order a new one, that's going to take time to get in, and that animal is just going to be very cold for a long time. And some animals are not okay with being super cold and it can make them sick. So we want to make sure that we have extra items like that on hand and ready to go. And even if you do already have them hooked up and in place, I definitely recommend having extras of things that tend to go out, like heat bulbs. Generally, heat pads are not something you have to worry about. If you've had it for a long time, I would definitely get an extra one of those. This is kind of up to you, up to your personal situation. Just kind of play it by ear, but make sure to have extra things that provide heat available. And along those same lines, you need to make sure you are keeping a check on that temperature. If it is getting 20 degrees outside, 10 degrees outside, negative 10 degrees outside, I'm sure your home is warmer than that, but you still need to make sure to keep a check on those temperatures. So my reptile room is right next to my back door. That door is going to be opened and closed a lot because dogs are going to be going in and out of the house. That means I have to make sure that the temperatures in those tanks are staying where they need to be. The best way to do this is with a temperature gun. It's the easiest, fastest way to do that, but just make sure you can do it with temperature probes, but just by having things on thermostats. Just make sure you're keeping an eye on it, because if something does go out, if you're using a ceramic heat emitter or a deep heat projector or a heat pad, you need to know if something is broken. You need to know if something has gone out, if a bulb has blown, so that you can replace it immediately. So just keep a check on those temperatures, which is something you should be doing all the time anyway. It just needs to be thrown in there to make sure that it's important to know during the winter time. Next tip is involving watering of the animals. Number one, make sure they always have plenty of water. If they are eating less, that means that they are getting less hydration. Most reptiles get their water, their hydration from the foods that they eat. So if they're not eating, they're not getting as much. Make sure they have fresh water sources available. Even if it's an animal that you may not normally give a water source, I recommend giving them that water source just so that you can make sure that they're given the opportunity to drink water if they need to. This kind of goes hand in hand with the fact that you're also going to spray tanks down less usually. If you have an added heat source, you might actually have to spray it more. But in general, if it is colder, you may have to spray that tank down less, because cooler temperatures, the water is going to evaporate slower. If that is the case, something like a crested gecko, girl geckos, things that normally get their water from like drinking off of the leaves that are around them, they're not going to have that opportunity as much. So providing a shallow water dish for them is going to be super helpful. for them and for you. That way you can make sure that soil is properly drying out between spraying times. But that also is another thing, you have to kind of play it by ear, play it by eye. If having a water dish is raising the humidity too much because it is cooler in your animal's tank, so like a bearded dragon, then maybe you don't need to have it in there. All of this is just kind of you paying attention and doing your best. And the last tip is to have extra food on hand. This one is very, very important. Most of the time, you're not just gonna have a huge supply of foods. You may have a huge supply of like mice, rats, things like that, but things like crested gecko foods, bugs, if you have huge supplies of those on hand, you're doing great. You're doing fantastic. But a lot of those things have to be ordered, or you have to physically go to the store to get those things. During winter storms happen. When winter storms happen, stores close down. Places can't ship. Shipments can't be pushed out. Even if you personally don't get winter storms, that doesn't mean that the place that your Pangea food is coming from doesn't have a winter storm, or the place that your mice shipment is coming from doesn't have a winter storm. And that can shut down shipments for weeks at a time. Last year, we had a pretty bad ice storm here, so all the roads were iced over for over a week. Actually almost didn't get my Google YouTube play button because the UPS guy, after a week of it supposed to be delivered, just decided to deliver it to a random dude at the end of my street because he couldn't get down my street. So that is insignificant compared to if your animals don't have food. So make sure that you are prepared in advance. Instead of, maybe the next time you go and get gecko food, instead of getting one envelope, maybe go ahead and grab 2. The next time you get rodents, maybe get a few more. If you're ordering online, get a big shipment. Set up those bug bins. Make sure you have backup bugs. Mealworms, while not the best stable food, are an amazing backup food because you can get a pack and just stick it in your refrigerator. That way, if a terrible situation happens, you can't get them food, you have something. Frozen vegetables are fantastic, like frozen butternut squash, just frozen bearded dragon vegetables, fantastic. You can throw that in the freezer and leave it there all winter if you need to. But if there's a situation where the stores are closed and you can't get to the store, you have a supply and it works out. Make sure to prepare those foods in advance. That is probably the number one most important thing. That probably should have been the first on the list. Make sure you have a good supply of food just in case you can't get to the store or the food can't get to you. But that is it. That is all I have for this week's video. I thought that it was appropriate since it got super cold. And yeah. If you have winter weather tips for reptiles, make sure to leave them in the comments below because they help people out and they help me out. You guys are awesome. Also, usually I almost always find an amazing tip that I didn't think of or I forgot to put in the video and I'll pin it. So yeah, that's it. This video is sponsored by I Heart Geckos. I Heart Geckos, awesome company. They make conversion kits for glass tanks, which allow you to basically take some silicone, put it around the opening of a glass tank, stick the piece of acrylic in, which has ventilation and a door, and you now have a front opening tank. They make ones for vertical tanks, for horizontal tanks. They have all different sizes. They're great. If you happen to order one of these from iHeartGeckos.com, make sure to leave Elle's Reptiles in the How Did You Hear About Us box. That way they know that you guys are coming from here. Thank you so much to iHeartGeckos for continuing to sponsor these videos. If you have not already, please feel free to follow me on socials and like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications every single time I put out a new video, which is a lot of Sundays, and sometimes I do shorts on Wednesdays. This week's Instagram shout out is here. This week's shout out is here. Thanks so much for liking, following, commenting, and sharing, and just subscribing, and all that jazz. You are the bee's knees. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye. I feel like the Instagram shout out should turn into a social media shout out. I don't know. Okay, bye. Test. Okay. I think that works. See my backpack. I guess I could do like a more straight on shot. Let's see what happens if I do that. Not the coats. I don't know why I feel like I need to be so close. Actually, maybe. So I can be here. That fix it. Yes. Okay. Cool. Really, I wasn't prepared for this. I'm like not all up and in your face like normal. Test. Okay. 2 minutes in. Good morning, Reptilians. Welcome.